I'm going to tell you a secret you've never heard anywhere else in this video. For decades, Iran held the entire world hostage with one narrow strip of water. The Strait of Hormuz was their ultimate weapon, a ruthless tool of blackmail that could paralyze global oil supplies with a single threat. Tehran believed this choke point made them untouchable. They were convinced no one could ever break their strategic stranglehold. But in May 2026, Saudi Arabia did something extraordinary. In one calculated masterstroke, they didn't attack Iran. They didn't fire a single missile. Instead, they built a 1,300-kilometer logistics bridge that completely bypassed the Hormuz trap forever and rendered Iran's greatest weapon useless. I'm World Brief Live, and in this video, I'm revealing how Saudi Arabia quietly constructed 3 unprecedented bypass systems that have redrawn the entire energy map of the Middle East. A powerful 9-port global network, a revolutionary 1,300-kilometer hybrid sea and land corridor with the world's largest container giant MSC, and the massive Petroline pipeline. This isn't just infrastructure. This is one of the most brilliant, bloodless geopolitical victories of the 21st century, a move so elegant and so devastating that Iran now finds itself strategically powerless in its own backyard. If you want to understand exactly how the balance of power in the Gulf has shifted forever and why Iran's biggest trump card has turned into an empty threat, then stay with me until the end. You're about to get the most detailed and eye-opening breakdown available anywhere. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We dive deep into the stories that are actually reshaping our world. Let's begin. To truly understand how devastating Saudi Arabia's move has been, you first need to grasp just how powerful Iran's position once was. At its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz is only 34 kilometers wide, yet this tiny waterway has served as the beating heart energy for decades. Nearly 21 million barrels of oil pass through it every single day. That's roughly 20% of the world's entire seaborne oil trade. China gets nearly 40% of its crude oil through this strait. Japan, South Korea, India, and much of Europe all depend heavily on this single choke point. For over 40 years, Iranian leaders skillfully weaponized this geographic reality. They didn't need a powerful navy or superior military technology. All they needed was the ability to threaten closure. Whenever tensions escalated, Tehran would issue stern warnings. Close the strait and global oil prices would explode. Insurance rates for tankers would skyrocket, supply chains would collapse, economies would tremble. This asymmetric threat became Iran's most effective foreign policy tool. Cheap to maintain, but terrifyingly expensive for everyone else. Iran built an entire mythology around it. They portrayed as the unbreakable gatekeepers of the Gulf, a nation that could bring the world to its knees without firing a shot. For generations, this strategy worked. Every US president, every European leader, and every Asian economic minister had to factor in the Hormuz risk when dealing with Tehran. The strait wasn't just a shipping lane. It was Iran's ultimate insurance policy and its strongest leverage in negotiations. But here's what very few people understood at the time. This power was built entirely on one dangerous assumption that the world had no realistic alternative. So let me ask you this. What happens when that assumption is suddenly and completely destroyed? That assumption has now been destroyed. In May 2026, Saudi Arabia made a decisive move that changed everything. Instead of confronting Iran militarily or engaging in endless diplomatic arguments, Riyadh chose a far more sophisticated path: total strategic bypass. They launched an ambitious multi-layered plan designed not to defeat Iran in battle, but to make Iran's greatest weapon completely irrelevant. The Saudi leadership had clearly grown tired of living under the constant shadow of Hormuz threats. For years, they had watched Iran disrupt regional stability while the world paid the price. This time, they decided to act. In a carefully coordinated strategy, Saudi Arabia unveiled 3 revolutionary bypass systems simultaneously. A move so bold and so comprehensive that it caught many international observers by surprise. First came the expansion of a massive 9-port maritime network centered on Jeddah Islamic Port. Second, a groundbreaking hybrid sea and land corridor developed in partnership with MSC, the world's largest container shipping company. And third, the full activation and expansion of the mighty Petroline pipeline capable of moving millions of barrels daily away from the strait. What makes this Saudi counteroffensive truly historic is that it required no military confrontation. No shots were fired. No soldiers crossed borders. Instead, engineers, diplomats, and business leaders worked together to build new infrastructure that quietly pulled global trade away from Iranian-controlled waters. This wasn't just about creating alternative routes. This was about redesigning the entire flow of energy and commerce in the Middle East, shifting power away from geography that Iran could threaten and toward infrastructure that Saudi Arabia could control and protect. Within weeks, major shipping companies and energy buyers began redirecting their operations. The old fear-based system was starting to crack. So here's the question I want you to think about as we continue. When a nation's entire geopolitical power rests on controlling a single waterway, what happens when the world simply decides to stop using that waterway? At the heart of this transformation lies one of the most ambitious projects Saudi Arabia has ever undertaken, the creation of a powerful 9-port global network anchored by Jeddah Islamic Port. In May 2026, the Saudi Ports Authority made a historic announcement that sent ripples across international maritime markets. Jeddah, already transformed by tens of billions of dollars in investment, was no longer just a regional port. It had officially become the central hub of a vast new maritime bridge connecting 9 of the world's most critical ports. This network stretches far beyond the Middle East. On the Asian side, it directly links with major Chinese ports, including Xiamen, Nansha, and Bantian. In Japan, the industrial powerhouses of Kobe, Nagoya, and Yokohama are now seamlessly integrated. On the European front, the network reaches Southampton in the United Kingdom, Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and Hamburg in Germany. What makes this development so significant is its speed and scale. Routes that once depended entirely on the Strait of Hormuz or the long journey around the Arabian Peninsula now have a secure, direct alternative through Jeddah. Goods no longer need to risk Iranian waters. Instead, they flow through Saudi-controlled ports, equipped with state-of-the-art infrastructure, automated cranes, and advanced logistics systems. Jeddah has evolved into something far greater than a simple stopping point. It has become the new gateway between 3 continents, a massive redistribution center where cargo from Europe, Asia, and the Gulf converges and disperses efficiently. Shipping companies have already begun shifting major contracts to this network, citing reduced risk and faster transit times. For global traders, this new system offers something priceless: certainty. Certainty that their oil, containers, and raw materials will reach their destinations without being held hostage by regional conflicts. This 9-port network represents more than just new shipping lanes. It marks the beginning of a fundamental shift in how the world moves energy and goods in the 21st century. But perhaps the most striking element of this 9-port network is who has joined it, especially Iran's closest supposed ally. Among the key destinations now directly connected through Jeddah are 3 major Chinese ports: Xiamen, Nansha, and Bantian. On paper, China remains Iran's most important economic and strategic partner. Beijing has long been Tehran's lifeline, buying discounted oil and providing critical political cover on the international stage. Yet when Saudi Arabia offered this new route, China did not hesitate. The reason is brutally pragmatic. Chinese factories run on Middle Eastern oil. Every single day, thousands of containers carrying electronics, machinery, and consumer goods must reach Gulf markets without delay. A single disruption in the Strait of Hormuz would deliver a devastating blow to China's economy, far more damaging than any political loyalty to Tehran could justify. By integrating into Saudi Arabia's network, China has secured a reliable alternative that completely avoids Iranian-controlled waters. Beijing can now receive Saudi oil and move its exports with confidence, free from the constant risk of Iranian speedboats, mines, or sudden blockades. This decision reveals a clear priority. Commercial survival and economic stability outweigh ideological or strategic alliances. For Iran, this move is nothing short of a betrayal. The very nation it counted on as its strongest backer has quietly chosen a path that weakens Tehran's leverage. While China continues to maintain diplomatic ties with Iran for political appearances, its business decisions tell a different story. Chinese companies are rapidly shifting logistics contracts toward the Saudi route, reducing their dependence on the vulnerable Hormuz corridor. This development carries deep strategic consequences. It severs a critical logistical lifeline that Iran once believed was unbreakable. More importantly, it proves that even Iran's most powerful friend is unwilling to risk its own economy for Tehran's ambitions. Saudi Arabia has successfully driven a wedge into the heart of the Iran-China relationship, not through confrontation, but through superior infrastructure and reliability. The message is now unmistakable. In the new Middle East, economics is speaking louder than politics. This strategic realignment extends far beyond China. 2 other major global powers have also quietly joined Saudi Arabia's new maritime network, further isolating Iran's influence. Japan has fully integrated its 3 most vital industrial ports, Kobe, Nagoya, and Yokohama, into the Jeddah-centered system. For a nation that imports nearly all of its energy, this connection represents far more than convenience. Japan maintains massive strategic petroleum reserves of approximately 16 million tons. In an increasingly unstable Pacific region, Tokyo cannot afford to leave its energy security dependent on a single vulnerable choke point controlled by Iran. The new route gives Japan reliable, uninterrupted access to Saudi oil and a safe passage for its manufactured goods heading to the Gulf and beyond. Japanese companies are already redirecting significant shipping volumes away from Hormuz, prioritizing stability over traditional routes. This move strengthens Japan's industrial resilience and reduces its exposure to any potential conflict in the strait. Meanwhile, Europe has also embraced the network with open arms. The major ports of Southampton in the United Kingdom, Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and Hamburg in Germany are now directly linked through Jeddah. For European industries already struggling with supply chain vulnerabilities, this new corridor offers a vital insurance policy. Heavy industry, chemical manufacturers, and energy importers across the continent can now bypass the constant threat of disruption in Iranian waters. What unites Japan and Europe in this shift is a shared realization. Depending on the Strait of Hormuz is no longer acceptable in today's volatile geopolitical climate. Both regions have watched Iran weaponize the strait for too long. By connecting to Saudi Arabia's network, they are voting with their cargo ships for security, predictability, and freedom from blackmail. Together, these partnerships have transformed the 9-port network from a regional Saudi project into a truly global alternative. Major shipping lines are rapidly adjusting their schedules, and long-term contracts are being signed that lock in this new reality for years to come. The old era in which Iran could intimidate the world's largest economies through one narrow strait is rapidly coming to an end. But Saudi Arabia didn't stop at creating a new maritime network. They went even further by forming a powerful alliance with MSC, the world's largest container shipping company, to launch something truly revolutionary, a hybrid sea and land corridor stretching 300 kilometers that completely bypasses the Strait of Hormuz. This is not an ordinary alternative route. It is a sophisticated logistical masterpiece that combines ocean shipping with high-speed land transport in a way never seen before at this scale. Here's how it works. Cargo ships departing from European ports sail into the warm waters of the Red Sea and dock efficiently at Jeddah Islamic Port or King Abdullah Port. There, advanced automated cranes and high-capacity systems rapidly unload thousands of containers. These containers are then transferred onto massive, specially designed truck convoys waiting on a secure, satellite-monitored highway network. The 1,300-kilometer land bridge cuts straight across the Saudi desert, connecting the western coast directly to the eastern coast. This journey, which once required weeks of dangerous sailing around the Arabian Peninsula, is now completed in a fraction of the time. Upon reaching Dammam Port on the Gulf side, the cargo is quickly loaded onto smaller, fast feeder vessels that distribute goods to ports across the United Arab Emirates and other upper Gulf destinations. Every step of this corridor is protected by advanced security systems, real-time satellite tracking, and Saudi military oversight. Not a single container passes through waters under Iranian control. This hybrid system has effectively made the threat of Hormuz irrelevant for a growing portion of regional trade. What makes this project even more remarkable is its alignment with Saudi Vision 2030. It represents Riyadh's bold ambition to transform the kingdom from an oil-dependent economy into a global logistics superpower. By investing heavily in ports, highways, and digital infrastructure, Saudi Arabia is positioning itself as the indispensable bridge between Europe, Asia, and the Gulf. For global businesses, the advantages are overwhelming. Shorter transit times, dramatically lower risk, and predictable scheduling. Major corporations have already begun shifting long-term contracts to this new corridor, accelerating its adoption at an impressive pace. For Iran, however, this 1,300-kilometer hybrid route is a nightmare. Their famous naval exercises designed to close the strait now face empty waters. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard can only watch as massive cargo flows bypass them entirely through Saudi land and sea. The strategic card they had relied upon for decades is rapidly losing all its value. This hybrid corridor doesn't just move cargo, it moves the center of geopolitical gravity in the Middle East. Yet even this groundbreaking hybrid corridor is only one piece of Saudi Arabia's larger strategy. The third, and perhaps most formidable, layer of the bypass system is already operating at full strength: the massive east-west Petroline pipeline. Stretching across Saudi Arabia, Petroline carries oil directly from the vast eastern oil fields to the Red Sea port of Yanbu. With a capacity of up to 7 million barrels per day, this underground steel artery completely bypasses the Strait of Hormuz. During the 2026 Hormuz crisis, the pipeline ran at maximum capacity, proving its reliability to the world. Protected by advanced air and missile defense systems, it represents an almost untouchable insurance policy for global energy markets. This triple combination, the 9-port network, the 300-kilometer MSC hybrid route, and the Petroline pipeline, has created an impenetrable wall of alternatives that Iran cannot threaten. Other nations in the region are now rapidly following Saudi Arabia's lead. The United Arab Emirates has aggressively expanded its own 380-kilometer Adicot pipeline from the Habshan oil fields to Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman. This allows the UAE to export its entire oil production straight into the open ocean without ever entering Hormuz waters. Iraq, seeking to rebuild its economy, is investing $24 billion in the Development Road project. This ambitious railway and highway network will connect the Grand Fa port in Basra directly to Turkey and onward to Europe, creating a new Silk Road that entirely avoids the strait. Even smaller Gulf states, Kuwait, Qatar, and Bahrain, which were once geographically trapped by Hormuz, are integrating into these new networks. They are no longer willing to let their economic futures depend on Tehran's mood. Across the entire region, a quiet but powerful exodus from the Strait of Hormuz is underway. Countries that once lived in fear of closure threats are now building, connecting, and investing in a future where Iran's leverage no longer matters. So here's the critical question. If nearly every major player in the Gulf has found a way around the Strait of Hormuz, what remains of Iran's once feared strategic power? The answer is clear: very little. Saudi Arabia has achieved one of the most impressive geopolitical victories of this century without firing a single shot. Through vision, massive investment, and strategic partnerships, Riyadh has turned Iran's greatest strength into an obsolete relic. The once feared Strait of Hormuz is rapidly becoming a secondary route, while a new network of ports, pipelines, and land corridors now controls the flow of energy and trade. Iran now stands strategically isolated. Its famous threats carry far less weight. Its naval exercises in the strait increasingly look like performances for an empty audience. The power it built over decades is evaporating in the face of superior infrastructure and collective determination from its neighbors. This is the new reality in the Middle East. Geography no longer dictates destiny. Nations that choose to build and connect are winning, while those who rely on threats and blackmail are being left behind. What do you think will happen next? Will Iran accept this new reality, or will it desperately try to disrupt these emerging corridors? If you found this analysis valuable, please like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth breakdowns like this. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update as this historic shift continues to unfold. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.